Hello and welcome back to Vicky's Country Home. Tonight I'm going to make leftovers, but I'm gonna switch them up a little bit. I love this. We make a chuck roast in the crock pot with caramelized onions and my home canned mushroom and onion soup, and it is just an amazing meal as a roast. But I decided I wanted to change that and do something different with it tonight, so I'm going to rethink my leftovers. I'm going to make soup, but I wanted to add egg noodles to it, and the other day I wanted to use egg noodles and I'm out, I think. But I couldn't find my egg noodles, so I had to use something else. Well, tonight I decided I'm going to make my own egg noodles to use in the soup, so let's make the noodles. And it's a fairly simple process, and you can do this all by hand, and I'm sure that is very enjoyable, but I don't have time for it tonight. So I'm going to use my mixer. So I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour in my mixing bowl. And I'm going to create a kind of well in it. And to that I'm going to add 3 egg yolks from my chickens in the last day or so. And 1 whole egg. So it's 3 egg yolks plus 1 whole egg. So I'm going to put those in the mixer. And we're going to start out with this. Now I should have put this in already, but I didn't. So I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. And let me bring you in a little bit closer so you can see. Now to that, I have a 1/4 cup of half and half. You could use water, you can use milk, you can use cream. I've read recipes that all of them are used. Let's kind of mix that into the center, scrape the sides a little. And it is so dry here, I think I'm going to add some water. Depending on your climate, you may have a lot of humidity, or you may be like us and it's very arid. So a lot of times I have to add more liquid than is called for because the flour gets dried out also. Now I would say I've used over a 1/2 cup. I'm going to let it mix a little more and see if it comes together. You want it to hold together. It's just starting to get there, so let it mix for a while. Now it's holding together, which is what I want. And I'm going to let this knead for a couple minutes, because if you're doing this by hand, it says to knead it for 10 to 15 minutes vigorously. This is not going to take as long, but I do want it well kneaded. I don't want to overhandle it though. I think it needs a little bit more. See how it breaks? I don't know if you can see that. That looks better to me. It's not too sticky and it's not too dry. So I'm going to move my mixer out of the way and then we're going to make noodles. I've got my marble stone just lightly floured and I'm just going to flatten this some into a disc. And we're going to roll this out. This is still really elastic. I think I'm going to cover this with plastic so it doesn't dry out and let it rest for about 10 to 15 minutes so that the dough will relax. We'll come back in just a little bit. All right, let's try this now. Much better. Sometimes you just need to walk away and let the dough relax. Now just roll this out to whatever thickness you want for your noodles. Now, when you drop them in the boiling liquid, they are going to puff up some. So keep that in mind and probably go a little bit thinner than you think. I would say that's about an 1/8 inch thick. And now we're just going to cut some noodles. I just have a pizza wheel and I've dipped it lightly in flour, but it really doesn't need it yet. It might in a little bit. And then just make the size noodles that you want. That's what they look like. Now I am going to put these on a pasta drying rack. I want them to air dry a little bit before we cook them. And I will be breaking these into smaller pieces after they've dried because I don't want long noodles. But this is a good width and this is a good way to let them dry in strips. So here we are, and it doesn't look like a lot, but remember these are going to be broken down into maybe 1.5 to 2 inch pieces. So I'm going to let these dry while I work on my soup. So this is the beautiful roast that I have left. And in this pot, I've already put most of the gravy, the mushrooms, and the caramelized onions that were on top of it. So what I'm doing now is just cutting this up into kind of bite-sized pieces. So there will be nice chunks of this in the soup. Take out any big pieces of fat. And any of the larger I'll cut into smaller pieces. So I'm going to finish cutting up chunks, and I probably won't use all of this because there's a lot left. There will be some left for some nice sandwiches. So I'll come back after I have this all cut up. Alright, I have my roast cut up into nice chunks. I've got all this beautiful gravy. Now what I'm going to do before I put it on the fire is I'm going to add beef stock. And I just grabbed this because it was the closest, even though I've got some home canned in there. I don't want a super thin soup, but I do want it to be a little bit thinner because we're going to add those noodles to this. So we have to have some liquid to cook them. Maybe just a little more. All right, that's what I've done. I'm going to get this on to bring it up to a boil and then simmer it. And then I'm going to add, once it's at a simmer, I'm going to add some sliced up leek from my garden and sliced up carrot from my garden. So let me put this on the stove and we'll come back in just a little while. All right, the meat and gravy are starting to simmer, so I'm going to add in the leeks and the carrots. And we're going to let those cook for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. We want them to start to get cooked before we add the next ingredients. So I'm going to let this simmer and we'll come back. I wish you could smell this. I wish you could taste it. It's so, so good. So my carrots and my leeks are they're getting a little bit tender. So now, I don't have any fresh, but I do have my Thrive Life freeze-dried green beans. I want something else green in here. So that's about 2/3 cup. And I think that's enough. So I'm going to let that cook a little bit longer and then we will add our homemade egg noodles. So this is about half of the noodles, and when these puff up, this is going to be a lot, so I decided to stop at this point. All right, everything is tender, so now I'm going to start adding the noodles. And these will not take very long. So don't go too far, just stay close, watch them, and test them for doneness. But now they're gonna absorb all that flavor too. Can't wait. All right, here it is. Let's have a taste. There's so much flavor that came from the roast. We really didn't have to add any flavoring except for in the noodles and the beef broth. So let's try the noodles. They're so good, and they are so different from the ones you buy in the package. They're a little bit chewy, they have a bite to them, and they really taste good. So it's a really good idea to add the soups. It gives it so much texture and so much flavor. Hope you enjoyed this. And I hope it gives you some ideas about using leftovers. And if you have something in your refrigerator right now that you need to use up, post it below and let's see if we can come up with some ideas to help you. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Be sure and hit the notification bell so you get notified anytime I upload a video. God bless. We'll talk again soon.